Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Health Wealth Podcast. We've got a great episode coming up for you today, one that I'm really excited about. We've got a great guest who I've been trying to get on for a while. I finally managed to tie her down and get her on. It's going to be a really interesting episode for people that you really need to open your mind to and listen. We're going to talk about manifesting and all things on that side of it. So, my guest is Yvonne Tchrakian. And first of all, Yvonne, thank you so much for coming on. And how are you doing today?
I am great. It's a long weekend here in Ireland and things are good. Yeah, I'm great. I'm doing great.
Brilliant. Okay. So as I said, thank you for coming on. The reason that I wanted to get you on is I've followed a lot of your stuff. I've watched your podcast, followed on social media, and manifesting is, you're the queen of manifestation. I think is that what you've referred to yourself as before? I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
I've heard
do.
that.
I say I'm the manifestation queen. There's
That's
lots of
it.
them. All the people that follow me, I tell them they're queens too, or kings. Queens or kings or queens, but anybody who's manifesting is a manifestation queen. And I call myself that. My friends say it to me as well. They're like, you are the manifestation queen. Uh, yeah, so that's like a self-given name.
Yeah.
Plus, my friends would say it as well.
Awesome. So yeah, I think to me manifestation is a huge thing. And I think it's real. I know there's people who argue against it, but I know it's kind of it's risen in popularity, I think, throughout the last however many years, maybe 10, 20 years. But I think a lot of people have it wrong, and there's a lot of maybe myths around it and things like that. So it'd be great to cover some of that and kind of give us the lowdown on what it actually is and how it works and things like that. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was what sort of got you into it? Was there a point where you began doing it, where you realized you could do it, or did you hear someone else talking about it? What was it got you started?
Yeah, so I'm actually from a really small town in Ireland called Listowel, and a county called Kerry, which is on the west coast. And my parents moved from Kerry to California when I was 2.5, and I had an older sister just a year older than me. So I was 2.5, she was 3.5, and this was in the 80s. And one of my earliest memory, and I would have come from a background where there was a lot of scarcity mindset. So my dad worked on a farm. His dad was a farmer. My mom's parents came from farming backgrounds. My mom came from a farming background, but her two brothers moved to LA to the land of the free, live the American dream, and they absolutely did. They set up a huge plumbing business called Kerrygold Plumbing and did like phenomenal. But my dad was a little more risk averse and had more of like kind of like a scarcity mindset around money and taking risk and expanding the business. For whatever reason, anytime he would say things like I have memories of him saying, we can't go to Disneyland, that's too expensive, or we can't afford that. And I always remember saying to myself, I'm never going to have to worry about money when I grow up. So I had this way as I was a kid of just always turning anything negative into a positive from a really, really young age. And at the time, my aunt, so I had an uncle, Patty, and his wife, Sue, I call her my Auntie Sue. What from the age of 5, she used to say to me, Yvonne, someday you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor. And she used to repeat it to me all the time, every time she saw me. And we were very close because she had 3 daughters and one that I was very close. So I used to see them all the time. It was the only family we had really in California. And she'd always say it to me because I was a really curious kind of child, is always talking. And it just stuck in my head that someday I was going to be a lawyer. She said lawyer or doctor, but for some reason, lawyer stuck in my head. And then the O.J. Simpson trial was on in California. I grew up watching it. I followed it. I was really obsessed with it. And I had this belief that someday I was going to be a lawyer, even though there was no lawyers in the family. We didn't have money. We weren't going to have money to send me to any sort of American law school or anything like that. But I had this belief in myself. And then we moved back to Ireland in 1996 after there was a big earthquake in Northridge in 1994. And I was really studious and I was like, I'm gonna be a lawyer. And my uncle that I had spent a lot of time with, Patty, came over from California on vacation and he had the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And he gave me the book. He was like, Yvonne, you have got to read this book. This book is going to change lives. It's amazing. And I'd say, I think I was 18. I probably was had one of the earliest copies of the book in Ireland. And I read the book and I was like, but this is already me. This is me. This is my mindset. I already have this kind of self-belief in myself. I was very I really loved like sports and stuff. And I do think that doing things like sport raises your endorphins. And I was just and my dad was very into health and fitness. So we grew up like in LA, you're growing up outdoorsy, sporty. So I always had this belief, and then I didn't get the points in Ireland, the college system points of getting the points to study law. So I didn't get it, but I said I went through a back door of doing arts, and I did law and history. And I remember it was 2008. I didn't get into the college that I wanted, but in 2008, but I went and did the arts. So there was obviously, challenges along the way. And then in 2008, when the whole crash, bang, bust came along and I was looking for a traineeship to be a lawyer, I got no interviews. And I just knew I was like, it's all right. I'm going to be in one of the top 5 law firms in Ireland. I just believed. And then one day my mom met a politician in the bank and he asked how I was. And she said, oh, she's struggling to get a traineeship. And he said, well, I know 2 big partners and 2 of the top law firms. Let me put her in touch with them. So he did. And one of the partners, it was just really to look at my CV. But the next day, one of the partners said, hey, do you want to come work on my team or the banking team? It was corporate or banking. And I said, I'll take corporate. So a couple things there. I seized the opportunity when it came knocking, which was this random encounter, which is what I think can happen with manifestation. You never ask how, but a lot of people might not seize that opportunity because they might be embarrassed that, like, oh, I never said things to myself like, I'm obviously not smart enough to do law. I'm stupid. I can't do law. If I can't get a traineeship, I shouldn't be here. I never had this belief that I'm not good enough to be in a place, even if I didn't have get the same level of grades or points as somebody else, because I knew I had other qualities. I was really good with people, and I was a grafter. I knew when I got in, I would work hard, and I would and I would show how hardworking that I was, and I worked my way up. And while I was in that law firm, I actually used to say, someday I'm going to be the company secretary of a public company. And I loved public company work. Like one of the first things that I worked on was the Ryanair. Acted for Ryanair, it's an Irish airline, um, hostile takeover of Aer Lingus. And I loved anything to do with public companies, like Succession. Do you watch Succession? That like all the shares, the stock exchange, the SEC filings, the U. I loved it. So I said, someday I'm going to be the company secretary of a public company. And I knew it, but I just thought that would be maybe when I was like 50 or something, because it's kind of a bit more of a senior role and you're more experienced. But when I was 29, a client of mine said, hey, do you want to come across and be the first employee lawyer setting up our European operations and it was a biotech. We focus a lot on neurological dysregulation. So I'm surrounded by a lot of neuroscientists. And initially, I was like, hell no, I'm not going across. I'm 29. I don't know what I'm doing. Are you crazy? Uh, but, and all the women in my life that were more senior mentors that I looked up to told me not to take the job. I'm in a law firm. I'm on the right track. It's very safe. It's very secure. And all the men in my life, mentors, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, a colleague on my team said, are you crazy? Take this job. Um, so it's just funny how sometimes women might operate versus men. So I took the job and it was just absolutely life changing for me. And it was the best career decision move I've ever made. But even those steps going from law into in-house, I didn't get there easily. Like I didn't get the points. Like I said, I didn't get the cup, but I didn't give up and I seized opportunities when they came my way. However, I almost didn't take my dream job because I was scared, which is the fear was holding me back. But eventually I was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst is it doesn't work out and you go back to law. You go back to private practice, So I kind of started to see all these things just lining up in my life. Like the more action I took, the more opportunities I saw. I was a big believer in visualization. I used to visualize myself doing certain things. I could see myself in those positions. And then on a daily basis, I did little things to make sure that my mindset was in a really good place, like practicing gratitude, saying affirmations are kind of more of a new one for me, but I would listen to um, positive music. There wasn't as many podcasts back then, but positive music. I would read the self-help books. I would go to the fitness festivals. I was always doing things to try and stay as I say it like as high vibey as possible. Not to say there weren't challenges along the way. There are, and there still are, but I think manifestation is all about taking responsibility for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That brings me on to my next question actually, which would be, for someone new to it, who just came to you, how would you describe what manifestation is to them? Because it's something that I would say is maybe kind of difficult to describe, and lots of people have different versions. What would you describe it as to a new person?
I I would say that firstly, if you're living, if you're breathing, if you are listening to this, you are manifesting, right? You're either manifesting in the positive, in the negative, or just neutral, and you're just drifting along. So manifestation is not a task. It's like a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I have to go manifest now." I'm like, "No, no, no. You are manifesting right now with your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs are creating your reality, whether you realize that or not." So I always, the reason why Pause Penny Manifestation Box was created was because people are confused about what manifestation is. One of the things, and I know I talked about The Secret, but what happened with The Secret was it created this false sense of I think about something and poof, it appears. Or I create a vision board and I'm wondering why it's not happening for me. But the reality is manifestation uh, can be a process. Just another word for taking action, goal setting, dreaming big. And I think some people shy away from the word or back away from it because they think it's some sort of magic woo woo. I'm talking about the crystals and the moon and, hippy dippy woo woo sort of stuff. But the reality is that there is so much neuroscience to manifestation. And part of manifestation and under the umbrella of manifestation is visualization. And every successful athlete does some form of mental training, which involves visualization, being able to see themselves doing it. And the more I talk about manifestation and the more entrepreneurs that come on my podcast and neuroscientists that come on my podcast, I've just realized that the majority of successful people have some sort of manifestation practice, whether they practice gratitude, affirmations, visualization, they write down their goals. So, what I did with the manifestation box was I created 7 steps. So, a lot of people say to me, yeah, like I've read all the books and I've listened to podcasts and there's Manifest, The Secret, The Magic, Atomic Habits, but like nobody has set it out in a simple way. Like when I joined a law firm, one of the first things the boss said to me was like, Yvonne, any lawyer can tell you what the law is in a memo. I'd written a memo with a probably junior, so loads of law on it. And he said, the hard part is simplifying it. So I needed to create something that was simple that people could do consistently. So I created a 7-step process of how I manifested everything from the jobs, my car, my house, soulmate, baby, starting the podcast, launching a business, everything in my life. I follow these 7 steps, which is the first step is, what do you want? What do you want in your life? And you would be amazed. I was at one of the biggest wellness festivals in Europe recently. I had a pause penny stand and I was doing a manifestation workshop. And I would ask people, they'd come up to the stand and be like, hey, what are you manifesting? And I would get 3 responses. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know. And the second response would be so many things, I don't know where to start. And the third would be like, I know what I want and I'm going after it. So for the people that don't know what you want, it might be that you're just confused in life and you're not really sure. So I always say, write down how you want to feel. Like you might want to be creative, you might want purpose. Think about where you want to be in your life. Maybe you want some joy, passion, maybe you want a new job, you want it to be in health and fitness or tech or whatever it is. And for those people and then you'll start to see things come up because that's the way it happens. The brain starts to tag things and as important to you, and opportunities just start coming up. And for the people that are kind of, oh, I have so many things I want to manifest. In our manifest box, there's 3 different things you can manifest. So just break it down, like family life, personal life, future goals, and separate them out, but follow all the steps. And then the second step is your why, the hardest card of all. Why do you want it in your life? No vision board is going to ask you, why do you want that big mansion? Why? Like, why do you want the Ferrari car? And it's like the stronger your why, the less likely you're going to give up on your dream. And like, even for me with Pause Penny, I'm a lawyer, like I said. I earn well as a lawyer. It's a career that you can earn quite well. And I'm selling boxes for 24 euro. And like it's some days I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing? There's social media that's I feel like being an entrepreneur, the highs are high and the lows are low, and every day can be a little bit of a grind. But I go back to the why, and the brand was created after the loss of a baby during pregnancy. And I just say, I'm doing it because like there's a lot of purpose behind the brand. I want to inspire people. Everybody, I believe, can manifest their dream lives. They just need to know how, and they need to know how to do it efficiently. But if your why isn't strong, you're just going to give up. I feel like you're just going to give up. The stronger your why, the more likely you're going to achieve your goal. And then we have the kind of visualization cards. Like, what do you see? You have to be able to see yourself in it to believe it. You've got to be able to see yourself in the car, in the new home, or in the new job, or running the marathon, or whatever that it may be. And if you struggle to see it, you just have to, it's discipline of visualizing it in snapshots. I visualize everything, anything I've ever wanted in my life. I wanted to be a speaker at Wellfest, which is that huge wellness festival. I attended the festival. I looked up on stage and I was like, someday I'm going to be up there. I used to visualize the tent, visualize me talking in it. The following year I was there. The same with the podcast, the guests that I wanted, a particular guest I'd written down, James Doty. He's one of the top neurosurgeons, written a book on manifestation. I wrote down in my box that I wanted him on the podcast, and I visualized, and like within 19 days he was on, and it was just unbelievable. He's just been on Goop, like Gwyneth Paltrow's podcast, and School of Greatness, and I was like, he was on mine before theirs. Like it's just, you don't ask how, but you have to be able to see it to believe it. And there's a lot of science about visualization and how the brain doesn't really know the difference between it actually happening and happening. And also, again, your brain is tagging what you write down. So if you write it down, you take action and have accountability, like an accountability partner or a friend, you're over 70% more likely to achieve your goal. Like over 70% just by writing it down with your own handwriting because it focuses the brain. And then what happens is your brain like it's called like filters out what it doesn't need and pays attention to what it does want and it tags it as important to you. So like it's like if you start saying, I'd love to buy a new car. I really want, I don't know, a Mercedes G-Wagon. And all of a sudden you just keep seeing the Mercedes G-Wagon. And it's because your brain has tagged it as a, and similarly, when you're negative, and your brain is focused on all this negativity, how hard your day is and how it's now raining and you don't have an umbrella or whatever it is, you don't see the G-Wagon go by or you don't have that chance encounter in the coffee shop with somebody who potentially could have put you on a path to meet somebody else to, it all has trickle on effect. So that's the third card. And the fourth card is what do you hear as if you've manifested it? So like I don't know, like maybe you want more podcast downloads. Let's just take an example. So what do you see? You see the downloads going up and up and up and up. You see a particular number that you might want. And what do you hear? You hear people saying, congratulations, you're in the charts. You hear yourself telling your friends, oh my God, I'm in the charts. I got to number whatever it is. So what do you hear? But also, what do you hear is what is that voice inside your head saying to you? Like, is it saying, I can't do that. There's so many podcasters. There's like, I'm not smart enough for that. I should just give up. I hear people talking negatively to themselves all the time. And I interviewed a lady called Emma Seppala, who's faculty at Yale and Stanford, and she calls it the inner terrorist, like that negative voice that like is talking you out of it. Like why would I, do yoga teacher training? There's so many yoga teachers. But like we all have to start somewhere. And there is space for everyone. If you really have to replace these negative, you're strengthening these negative neural pathways in your brain. And the best thing you can do is flip the script when you start to realize you're saying things like that. And I always take other people's stories. Like at Wellfest recently, Joe Wicks was headlining. And I was like, oh my God, Joe Wicks, like he's huge. He's got 4 million followers on Instagram. He's so big and he's amazing. And then I thought, hold on a second. Like he was handing out flyers at a train station and nobody was going to his boot camps. And now he's headlining some of the biggest fitness events ever. Like everybody has to start somewhere. So stop talking yourself out of it. And then the next card is how do you feel? So if you like, as if you have what you want. So you've met the person, you've got the job, you've got the promotion, you've got the podcast listened, you've made more sales, whatever it is. Think about how you would feel, which is like excited, joy, gratitude, proud. Like who are you calling? What are you saying to them on the phone? And I always say, take those three cards, those see, hear, and feel. Look at them at nighttime, put them in your box, look at them, and then as you fall asleep, visualize what you see, hear, and feel every single night on repeat, on repeat. And then the days that you want to give up, the days that you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this anymore. This is just tough work. Go back to your why card. Why did you do it? And that's why your why card needs to be strong. And then your sixth card is your action card. And that's why I don't like a vision board because no vision board is going to tell you, how am I going to get there? Right. So how are you going to get more downloads on your podcast? You have to think about it. Am I going to do more marketing? And am I going to have to get another different kinds of guests? How are you going to make more sales? Like you have to take action every day. And maybe what you want to manifest is a little bit more personal. Like it's like, well, I want to manifest a soulmate. Well, are you, what are you saying to yourself? Maybe you might be, a lot of people would say to me, I really want to meet somebody, but it's so hard. Like, okay, well, there you go. It's so hard, and it's going to be so hard because you keep saying it's so hard, right? Um, I 100% manifested my soulmate, like 100%. And, but you have to work on yourself. Like, so go on the dates or uh, practice your gratitude. Those are the action points you can take every day. Practice your gratitude. Stop telling yourself it's so hard, that there's nobody out there, that you're going to be left on the shelf. And then when you see somebody that's walking down the beach with a guy or a girl, and don't be like, oh God, or, you know, another friend gets engaged and you're like, it's never going to happen for me. You just have to switch it up and be like, I always used to say, especially because I struggled with having a baby. Initially, I found it really tough to see pregnant women. But then after all the loss I had, I realized, hold on a second, I don't know what these people are going through and what relevance do they have to my life anyway? Even if it's a friend of mine on their second or third child, it has no relevance to my life, really. This is my journey. So I just used to say, me next, me next. And it would just raise my vibe a little bit. And your last card is your grateful card. There's so much science around the practice of gratitude, how it changes your mindset, reframes past trauma. That was the first box that was created by for Pause Penny because that's the first thing I went back to after the grief. And just one thing a day, one thing that you can be grateful for. And it's so simple. It can be so simple. Like it can be, I'm so grateful for this lovely flat white coffee that the barista made me, or, I'm so like we're living in a really safe country. I'm so grateful my kids are safe. I'm so grateful I have a home. I'm so grateful for Ryan for asking me on his podcast. Like there's so many things that you could be grateful for. And when I have my own podcast, I always ask the same two questions at the end. Who are you grateful for? And what are you manifesting? And the people that have a regular gratitude practice, always, there was three of them that I knew had a consistent, regular gratitude practice. They always said me. They always said, I'm grateful for you, Yvonne, for having me on your podcast or blah, blah, blah. Because when you practice gratitude, you're able to find things that you're grateful for in the moment very quickly. Whereas other people struggled a little bit. They'd be like, yeah, or they would say, which is fine, my mom or my kids or whatever. But the more you practice gratitude, the more you're able to be really present with what you're grateful for. And it's always the little things. It's the little things in life. So I had a top tech executive in Ireland, and she was gifted my manifestation box. And she contacted me and she said, um, I have been to all the talks. I have read all the books, but I have never come across a product like yours. And she said, you need to call it the manifestation method. And I was like, actually, you're the second person that has told me that because she said, you have a process. And I was talking to another person today about it who said that, and this happened to me before with a CEO that I used to work for. And he got a manifestation box because he's a huge believer in manifestation. But he sold his company for a lot of money and he was starting again. And he said, he came back to me about 2 weeks after he got the box and he said, I'm stuck on the why card. I just don't know why I want to go again. And maybe I'm just doing it to prove to everybody else that I'm not this one trick pony that's sold a business for multiple millions. But the reality is, I don't want to be a CEO again. I don't want to build a big business again. So why am I actually doing this? I just want to go travel now. And, I'm older and I want to enjoy. And I was like, well, there you go. It also, and that's what a girl told me today. She has a box and she said she was going down a particular path. But when she got to the Y card, she couldn't fill it out. And then she was like, then I kind of looked at the other cards and I was like, do I feel excited about this? Just like, I actually don't. So even though I did a course on it, even though I spent money and time on it, I'm actually going to go a different route. So the manifestation box really makes you think. And I think that's what's really important about manifestation. You are in the driver seat of your life. You have got to put your hands on the wheel and take control. It is your responsibility. Nobody's coming to tell you what to do or where to go or how to do it. So you have to figure it out for yourself. And this is just a good tool to help you on that path, I think. Now, sorry, I've rambled loads and loads there.
No, that was absolutely brilliant. I agree that you need that conviction, don't you? Which, like you said, your steps take you through and make you have that. And one of the things I had down in my notes to ask about or to talk about was the fact that it's all so confusing, and that the fact that what you've got there, your product, your 7 steps, just simplifies it, and that is exactly what I think people need. You know, for many things in life, but for this topic especially, we deal a lot in diet and health and stuff like that. And again, it's confusing. And so yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. So just while we're on that subject, for people who've heard that and thought that's exactly what I need, where can they get hold of that? Because I think that's going to be amazing for so many people.
Yeah, so we have our website is pausepenny.com and we ship globally so they can grab a Pause Penny box. And then I've actually done a solo episode also on my own podcast that goes through the 7 steps again, but we have samples in the box. It's really so you can there's 3 things in the box and then you can buy refill cards if you want, but there's a guide in the manifestation box. It tells you exactly how to do it. And actually, our 2 samples are the 2 biggest things people want to manifest, which is one, goal weight. So it's what do you want, goal weight, why do you want it, blah, blah, blah. You go through the steps. And the second one is soulmate. So you go through the steps, but you can do it for absolutely anything in your life. You can do it for more confidence. What do you want? More confidence. Why? You want to make more friends. You want to give a TED talk. You want to start a podcast. What do you see? You see yourself on stage, like, you know, you hear yourself peak. You can do it for absolutely anything that you want in your life. So it's not limited to like these big materialistic things, the house, the car. You can do it for purpose. Like what do you want? More purpose in your life. Why? You want to feel valued. You want to feel like you're giving stuff back. What do you see? Like maybe your purpose is giving yoga classes or, you know, uh, podcasting or writing the book, whatever it is, that you can do it for absolutely everything and anything that you want. Um, so yeah, I do think it's a really good tool and there's nothing out there like
Yeah.
it. So I'm manifesting big things for Boss Penny.
Absolutely. And I can imagine big things are coming for it, especially with your track record of manifesting things. They're going to come. What one thing I
But it
wanted to
takes time.
go
It
on.
takes time,
Yes.
Ryan, and I think one of the things that we need to remember is that we have to let go. And when you're attached to the outcome and you're holding on to it, which is what people struggle with the most, they're like, I want it now, I want it now, and why isn't it happening? And I have a lot of like things that I say, like for that, I say like, um, when I let go, my life will flow. So sometimes if you find yourself in that kind of like holding on to, just repeat those kind of things. And my favorite affirmation is everything always works out for me. The best is yet to come. And I actually look back on my life and I'm like, everything worked out. And it actually worked out even better than I expected. Like I ended up in a public company that I was manifesting, but it was a public company in neuroscience, something that I didn't really know of at the time, think of at the time. I could have ended up in a public company in aviation. It could have been anything. You know what I mean? But I just think sometimes you have to you have to let go, surrender and let go. But people do struggle with the letting go. And what I say to people is, if you're struggling to let go, ask yourself the question, am I doing everything I possibly can to achieve my goal? And if you're taking action and you're visualizing, well, then you're doing everything you can. There's no more you can do. So let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so I actually have a personal story with manifestation as well, which links into this whole podcast, which obviously you said about, with the timing, we don't control the timing, just it happens whenever. And obviously people think of that taking longer, but it can happen the other way where it can happen a lot faster than you imagine as well, can't it? Which, the beginning of this year, me and my wife, we've been thinking for quite a while about we wanted to relocate from the UK to Dubai, and the beginning of this year we were like we're really gonna manifest it, and we want it to happen, by the end of the year we want to be getting there. And 2 months later, our landlord tells us we got 2 months to get out. And so we just said, well, let's just do it now. And so we did it. And so this is my first podcast since we arrived in Dubai, and it just happens to be with the manifestation queen. So it
Meant to
it it
be.
it all ties in. Yeah. When you booked in on it, and I said to my wife, I said, you know what? My first podcast when we get there is actually going to be with Yvonne, and it's something we manifested. So it's things like that. Some people might say
Yeah.
that's just chance, that's coincidence, but then you think, is it though, or is it something more?
It's funny. I had on James Doty, the neurosurgeon, who would be like, if you think about who your number one guest is, your number one, for me, that was my number one guest. And I didn't know how I was going to get him on. I was like, how am I going to get this guy on? I have no idea. But I messaged him on LinkedIn, no reply. Then I messaged him again. He was doing a webinar. I went on to the webinar. I took a screenshot with my phone of him on the webinar. And I was like, okay, this is what it's going to look like when he's on my podcast because he's going to be on video. So I used to visualize that. And I sent him a message saying, I loved your webinar. That was it. And he said, please connect with my assistant. And his assistant was Olivia Buckley, which is an Irish name. And this guy is in Stanford in California. And I was like, well, she sounds Irish. So I contacted her and I said, James said he'd come on and blah, 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 blah. And turns out, anyway, she lives in Ireland. But not only does she live in Ireland, she lives in Dublin. Not only does she live in Dublin, but she lives in my small village, Sandymount in Dublin. And I'm like, how? So I was telling James this, Jim, he calls himself Jim, and he was like, oh, it's just a good story. And I was like, no, 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 it's not. Like I saw on his Instagram today that he said, I was just talking to Deepak Chopra about my book, and I've landed in New York, and my table at the restaurant is right beside him. Serendipitous. Like, I don't know how these things happen, like, but I do believe that there is something more and opportunities show up and things happen. And even now, I might think of certain things. I'm like, I want that, like, but I won't write it down. It'll just be in my head and it'll happen. Like I was at Wellfest, and there was a particular brand that I had reached out to for sponsorship, and they I hadn't realized I was talking I was talking to the marketing intern. Like I don't know where I got her email, but I had sent this email to marketing intern. Like she's not going to get me anywhere. And she said, "Sorry, but our budget is already full for the year." But at this particular event, they were sponsoring this female dancer who's just so amazing, and I was dancing around her music. And now the two of us are going to do a collaboration event, and that brand is going to sponsor it. So like things just happen sometimes as well. And I think the more you get good at manifestation or dream setting or whatever, the more your vibe is high, the more you practice discipline of doing your gratitude, your affirmations, your manifestations, things will happen for you. But you will be challenged along the way. Because, like I said, manifestation is a lifestyle. Like I always say that manifestation is like, and you know this because you just moved to Dubai. Manifestation is like booking your flights for a vacation or a move, right? You book the flight. You know you're going. You are going to Dubai. You know, you are not checking every single day to see, am I still going to Dubai? Is that ticket booked? No. But what you're doing is you're packing your bags, you're making sure your passport is in order, you're taking the action, you're seeing yourself over there, you know you're going, and then you get to the airport and the flight is delayed, but you still know you're going. And then, you get through security and they stop you, and there's all these challenges along the way, but you still know you're going. There's no doubt. So that to me is how manifestation works. You make a decision, You're going in that direction. You're challenged along the way, but you don't give up. You know it's going to happen. You just have this belief. But we're all going to be challenged in life. There's no one that's going to go through this journey of life and just have it easy. It's just not going to happen, no matter who you are. No matter how much money you have, no matter how successful you are, it doesn't matter. Everyone is going to be challenged on this journey, but it's how you react to it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really important way to look at it and describe it because I think, especially nowadays, even more so, people give up very easily, don't they? That they have these dreams and the first hardship comes along and people give up. So, they'll be like, oh, well, it didn't work out. But, they don't know if they'd kept pushing for another couple months, it could have all fallen into place for them. So I think that's a great illustration that you used of it, that they just have, if that's what they want, you have to keep going after it, don't you, for it to happen.
Yeah, I think there's so much social media that people end up comparing themselves a
Mm,
lot,
yeah,
and they're just like, "Oh my God, look at her podcast. She got a sponsor in the first season. I can't get that." And look at his downloads. Oh my goodness. Like, I interviewed a guy, an Irish guy on his podcast. He's been doing it for 5 years and he's getting like 100,000 downloads um a month, I think it is now. And I was just like, wow, you know, but like he's been doing it for 5 years. So I think what happens is we can start comparing ourselves to other people and just be like, oh, look, I'm not making those sort of sales or I don't have those sort of downloads. So you just give up.
yeah,
But you just have to, and a lot of people give up because they're impatient.
mm,
We want things now, 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 just like we can access anything. You order food, you get it immediately, you turn on Netflix, you can have a movie. There's no graft and grind for it. So, um, it's easier to give up and not look like a failure sometimes,
yeah,
than just to keep going. And the grind sometimes is tough.
yeah,
Oh, it
yeah,
is tough.
yeah, it
Don't
is.
get me wrong. That can be tough too sometimes. Believe me, I have my days of doubt as well, but they're outweighed by the good days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any successful person in any sport, any industry, they say they've had struggles, they've had hard times, and they've kept believing. You look at the top athletes, all of them have had a belief since they were young that they were going to be the best. And
Yeah.
they've ended up being the best. Some people would say, did they have that belief because they were so talented, or did they end up at the top because they had the belief?
Yeah, I listened to Cristiano Ronaldo on the Whoop podcast, and he talked about I think the CEO of Whoop asked him like, was it talent or hard work? And he said it was a mix of both. And it was both. Like he said, your talent is only going to get you so far. If you're not going to work hard, then, and you can work hard, but if you don't have a bit of talent in the sport industry, it's not going to work either. But he talked a lot about discipline and what he does for his mind and his body on a daily basis. He even talked about manifestation actually and visualization because I could put it up on my LinkedIn on Monday for my manifestation roundup. So if anybody wants to listen, it's 16 minutes 45. He talks about how he would be on the pitch and before he went out, he would just know there's going to be a penalty in this game. He just knew. And it's funny because another footballer, my husband sent it to me, Ivan Torney. Don't know what team he plays for, but my husband's always,
Brentford.
yeah,
Yeah.
after he got into trouble with the gambling, or I think it was, or whatever it was. But anyway, he said afterwards, a couple of times, I manifested that goal. I could see it. I knew it would happen. And there is an Irish podcast here. It's well known called The Second Captains, and they made fun of him. They were like, "Oh yeah, manifest, woo woo woo." But every athlete visualizes and believes. I'm not saying it happens every single time, but they have a mental strength. So if athletes are visualizing, we can visualize for the daily things, but it also goes back to Ronaldo talking about discipline. And he said, I don't want to go to the gym every day. I don't want to eat my greens every day. I don't want to do all this every day. And also same with manifestation. Sometimes you don't want to practice your gratitude. You don't want to do your affirmations, but it's discipline. If you do it consistently, you're going to reap the rewards. So sometimes you just have to push yourself because motivation's only going to get you so far. We're not always motivated,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge thing. I always talk about discipline beats motivation every day of the week. 'Cause motivation's a feeling; it comes and goes. Discipline is
Yeah.
something you can have the whole time. One of the things I wanted to ask you about for visualization, because there are people that struggle to really visualize. Is that something that you just need to practice, or are there people who can visualize and just people who are just not going to be able to get that part?
Yeah, there's a small group of people that can't visualize. It's called aphantasia, so they actually can't see the pictures in their head, but that is like 1%. It's like a
Mm,
really, really, really small amount. I think what happens is people don't know really where to start or how to start, or they think they're doing it wrong. But like we can all visualize. If I say like think of a pink pig, you'll see it in your mind, right? Think of a red love heart, you can see it in your mind, right? So the majority of people can visualize, but they just need to practice. And the way I visualize is keep it simple.
yeah,
Keep it simple. Like for me, I'm a real like I put myself in the situations that I feel like it's happening for me. So I do some crazy mad stuff. So like this for like so like when I wanted to meet a soulmate, I wore a fake engagement ring on my finger just at night. And I'm totally mental, but just at night, that feeling, looking, seeing it, feeling it as if it's, and then I'd visualize myself like, so that was that visualization. I wanted to get married, so I visualized a wedding, short snapshots, but then I wanted to like for me, I want to be on stage. That's what I'm visualizing now. Like I see myself on a really big stage. So I just visualize myself on a stage, lots of people, snapshots, like really quick and fast, 15-second snapshots, repeat, 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 repeat. So I visualize all the time, but I always visualize before I go to bed. So I'll just like look at my cards that I want, the see, hear, and feel cards. I'll look at them. Some of them I know off by heart now, and I'll just go to bed and I'll just visualize the same thing over and over and over again until I fall asleep. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, I visualize myself back to sleep. But you only need to do it for a minute at a time. It doesn't need to be complex. You do, and it's better. Don't like visualize these long, big, long scenes. It's like, maybe you want a particular guest on your podcast. Visualize yourself speaking to that person. You can see yourself. You can hear yourself saying, "Oh my God, I manifested you coming on. I knew you were going to come on my podcast. I just knew it. I believed it. I could see it. And look, you're here." Do you know what I mean? So I think it just takes a little bit of practice. I've heard a lot of people say they struggle to visualize, but it really is just taking practice. It's just like people saying, "I can't meditate." Now, I'm not a big meditator. I don't meditate. I actually visualize. That's my meditation, but it can be done. It just takes practice.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think um, being more specific will help as well, which, having something like you've got with your 7 steps, I think it's going to help people to visualize them because they're almost visualizing it as they're laying out the steps and they know what they're visualizing. Like you said, when about the question you asked to people, what are you manifesting? And a lot of people can't really answer it. So then they're going to struggle to visualize if they can't even answer it.
Exactly. So what I like say for me, if there's a particular car that you want, take it for a test drive. Take a picture of you in it. Look at that picture. That's what you're visualizing. Take it for a test drive. You know how it feels, the sound of the car, like take it for a drive, how it feels. When I go to the podcast studio, every single time I go in, there's these podcast awards. Every time I pick up a podcast award, I'm like, I've won the best Irish newcomer podcast. And the guys in there think I'm totally nuts. And whether I win it or not, I don't actually really care. But like I pick it up, I feel it, I can feel what it feels like. I I have a goal at some point to write a book on my story and manifestation, but it's kind of more long term. But I took a real book, I made a fake cover, of what I thought the name of the book would be. I went into our a bookstore called Eason's in Ireland. I put it on the number one spot, and I just stood there looking at it at number one, took a picture of it, then took the book and ran out of the store like a crazy lunatic. So I love to like act the way it's going to happen. But like, look at Jim Carrey, the actor. He wrote himself a $10 million check. He used to go up in LA. There's a place called Mulholland Drive, and he used to go up and he used to visualize himself. He post dated the check 5 years out, and he got Dumb and Dumber. Sarah Blakely, the Spanx founder, I absolutely love her. If anybody needs a book to read when they're feeling like they want to give up, the Spanx story is just unbelievable. She was selling fax machines, but she visualized herself talking to Oprah. She didn't know what for. And when she started Spanx, everyone told her, the manufacturers, nobody wanted to make it for her. They were like, why do you want Spanx? Women have tights. This is insane. But she didn't give up. And she still talks, if you follow her on social media, she still talks about the universe and manifesting and believing and affirmations. Um, Loads of successful people are hugely into manifesting. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, would you think a guy from a small town in Austria would become the governor of California? Like, what the hell? You know? Like, and that's why I say in the manifestation steps, there is no how. How is it going to happen? There is no when. There's a reason for that. You don't ask how, you don't know how, but you just take the actions to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think listen, we're running short of time. I don't want to take up all your evening, but there's two more things that I wanted to cover. So one thing that I wanted to cover quick was what are the main things that you see people get wrong when it comes to manifestation?
I think the main thing is the one of the main things that they're getting wrong is they don't actually realize how negative they're being
Mm,
around the topic that they want. Like somebody wants to buy a house and they're bidding on a house and then they get outbid once, twice, three times, and they're like, I'm never going to get on the property ladder. It's so hard to get on the property ladder. Like, everybody's buying a house except for me. It's never going to happen. Same with when you're trying to, meet somebody. It's so hard. There's nobody out there. Like that constant repetition of negativity. I see it all the time. I really do. I see people like saying to me, I really want to meet somebody, but it's so hard. I'm like, you're following up with like the negative
yeah,
statement. And also, I think people want to do a lot of things, but they're afraid of failure. They're afraid to fail. Um, you know, and I just think that regret has got to be far worse than failure ever is. So I think there's a lot of things like, so you've got the fear of failure as well and judgment and people just caring too much what other people think about them.
yeah,
Like just so it kind of holds them back. It holds them back. Another thing see with a lot of people, and like I said, manifestation is a lifestyle. A lot of people pleasers. So they might say yes to certain things or they're doing stuff for other people, other people, other people. But I always say, if you keep saying yes to the things that you don't want to do, more of that's going to come around. And it means you're saying no to yourself and what you really want to do. Um, a lot of people are talking themselves out of it, like, oh, there's so many yoga teachers. There's so many podcasts already. There's so many this or so many that. So it all goes back to the mindset of like not believing that it can actually happen for them because they haven't seen it happen maybe for them because they've either given up or they haven't taken the leap because they're afraid of failure. There's a lot of there's a lot of different things, but it usually comes down to mindset.
yeah. I think, unfortunately, I don't know if it's always been that way for humans, but I think in today's society, negative is kind of just our go-to, isn't it? That we almost naturally react negatively. I think at first, you have to really catch yourself doing it, don't you? And consciously try and make that decision to change it.
But negativity sells. I
Yeah.
see it now. The more I'm on social media, the more I see it. I like on LinkedIn, the people that have the negative clickbait lines or whatever. You know, I was in an article in the Irish Times, big Irish newspaper. It was called Money and Me. And they kind of edited what I said, but effectively the headline was like, my mother always had to ask my dad for money, and I never wanted it to be like that for me, or something along those lines. It was one of the most read articles of 2023. And I was like, I did say that kind of sort of, but if it was something positive, like, oh, I'm living my dream life, I'm so happy. Who knows if people would have clicked on it, but
Mm.
we go to negativity a lot and people actually think they're positive, but they're not actually as positive as they think. And I can tell even by the way people write their posts and what they say that there's like a negativity streak kind of running through there. So people a lot of the time people don't even realize how negative they're being. Like even let's say on money, oh, another bill. Oh my God, I'm so broke. I can't afford that. It's so expensive. It might be expensive. I understand that. We're not all multimillionaires here. I get it, but it doesn't help you to keep repeating that phrase to yourself over and over again. I had my bank account today and I was laughing at myself because one of my bank accounts I've named Abundant. I've named my Revolut card Abundance. Like I do all these things, you know? And like if I'm buying something for myself, and maybe it's an expensive purchase, like I'm treating myself to something like a Chanel pair of glasses, like, and they're expensive, but it's a treat for me. Instead of being like going up to the counter and being like, "Oh my God, this is so expensive." I'm just like, I just go up to the counter, they tell me the price, and I say, "Oh, it's a bargain." You know, it's not, but like, there's no point in being like, yeah, I know, should I really be buying these? Oh my God. Like, you've made the decision. You're
Yeah.
going to buy the glasses. Might as well say it's a bargain. You know what I mean? Like, so always the ability to turn that negativity. Obviously, we have to be realistic. Can't go around buying Chanel bags and glasses if you don't have the money for them, but repeating to yourself that everything is so tough, so hard, so you're so tired, you're so wrecked, you've no time, you've is not helpful. It actually affects your physiology. So that's kind of one of the key things that people need to snap out of.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that leads me nicely into the last thing that I just wanted to ask you was for someone who's listened to this podcast and that they're new to manifesting, they haven't done it, and they're thinking, okay, I need to start trying to implement this in my life. What are the basic things you would tell them to start with? Obviously, the first thing would be to buy your manifesting boxes. That would be a great start. But what are little things people can start to implement to start to rewire their brain?
I think firstly a gratitude practice. A gratitude practice, if you can do a consistent gratitude practice, you're actually going to catch yourself a lot when you say something negative. Like I even practice with my son who's 5, and my daughter's 3, and we've got the twins. But like I hear him saying stuff a lot now, like using the word at least. Like I'll say, "Oh, it's raining outside. Oh, it's raining." Like we were walking to school the other day and it was raining, and he said, "At least I have a warm jacket."
Yeah.
You know, you'll start to you'll start to really change up and kind of rewire. And there's a lot of science to that. So I'd start with the gratitude practice. I would start with affirmations. This is free. Writing down what you're grateful for is free. I would affirmations, Google, go chat GPT, affirmations for abundance, affirmations for to reduce anxiety, affirmations for, you know, positivity. Pick a couple a day, just say 3, just so gratitude, affirmations, and then think about what brings you joy. Like for me, it's exercise. It's my coffee in the morning, my gratitude, my affirmations, I do my visualization, and then I exercise. But exercise for me is boxing. I box. I love it. It brings me so much joy. It raises my vibe, but for somebody else, it could be yoga or Pilates. So, what actually raises your vibe to make you happy? And think about as well, easy things that you can do. So, gratitude is easy and it's free. Affirmations are easy and it's free. Um, Exercise can be free. You can go for a walk or whatever. But let's say you don't love exercise. Another easy thing to do is start to unfollow people. Unfollow anybody on your algorithm that is just, if you find yourself comparing yourself to them, even if you love them, even if you think they're great, but you're like, oh my God, look how many sales they made again. Look, they were just on this show, or look, they just got funding for XYZ. They just got athletic greens, but unfollow. It's not good for you, to just be comparing yourself. So start to do an audit on your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your TikTok, your Facebook. What podcasts are you listening to? What books are you reading? All of this stuff is free. And then also the freest one of all, but it may not be for everyone because some people have kids and blah, 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 but sleep. I know it sounds so, but honestly, you are not going to be manifesting if you're cranky and tired.
Yeah.
It is so much harder I actually would put sleep at the absolute top because sleep dictates all of the rest of your day. If you're tired, you're eating shit. If you're eating shit, you're feeling like shit. If you're feeling like shit, your mind is saying shitty things, right? So it's this crazy knock-on effect. It all starts with sleep. So get your sleep. And it's one thing that when I worked in a law firm, was getting 4 hours sleep at night, but I was in my 20s. Like, fine, no kids, no nothing, right? Now, even with Pause Penny, always say to myself, yeah, I would like the brand to be bigger and but there is absolutely no way I'm sacrificing my sleep. None. I'm just not going to do it. I don't need to get to the top quickly. I'm going to enjoy the journey and I'm going to enjoy it with sleep because I am way bigger and better manifester when I've gotten the sleep. Because once you go down that path of being tired and cranky, your mindset can't change to the positive. Everything is shit when you're tired. Everything. So get some sleep. It's an easy one. You know? Now, not everybody can get sleep. They've got small kids. The kids aren't sleeping through the night. They're sick, whatever it is. But if you can get sleep, like turn off the phone, get off TikTok, stop the scrolling, and go to bed.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think cutting down social media and improving your sleep are two things that are going to have a huge effect on most people's mental health, anyway, as well
Yeah.
as helping them with their manifestation. So, yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. Listen, thank you again so much for your time, for coming on. I've really, really been looking forward to this and it hasn't disappointed. And before you go again, remind us one more time, where people can find you, where they can find your product, if they want to follow you.
They can find I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not talking about law. I'm only talking about manifestation. The crazy lawyer only talking about manifestation. I'm on Instagram, Yvonne Tchrakian Manifest, and then pausepenny.com is where you can get all the products. And then the podcast is all up in your biz if you want to listen to more manifestation. But before I go, what are you manifesting, Ryan?
So right now, I'm manifesting success for my new business that I'm setting up in Dubai, which is what we've moved here for. So that's what I'm manifesting right now.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So yeah, now you know the 7 steps.
That's
Gotta
it.
write it down, visualize, take action, practice your gratitude, get your sleep, and you'll be super successful. Why not?
That's it. That's the way to do it. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you again next week for another episode, and let's get optimal together.